Hello and welcome to Restoring Our American Republic. I'm Chuck Benoit with The Nature of Things, where we are realigning God, government, and natural law so that we might restore our American Republic. President Trump's war on crime has given us the lowest murder rate in our country in over 125 years. That is an incredible feat. Getting illegal immigrants off the street, prosecuting murderers, keeping them behind bars, work to prevent crime by violent repeat offenders. The scriptures say that God destroyed the earth with a flood because murder was rampant with mankind. And the first command that God gave Noah as he got off the ark was about murder. He said, "Whoever sheds man's blood, by man's blood shall be shed, for the image of God, in the image of God, he, God, made man." With the onset of civil government, that responsibility was more adequately placed in the hands of government. But more recently, in American culture, the violent offender has been deemed the victim. They have been regularly let off the hook for the violence they perpetrated. So, a heartfelt thank you to President Donald J. Trump for at least attempting to return the victim status to, well, the actual victim. And thank you, President Trump, for making America safe again. So hopefully we can get through our thing tonight, today. We're having a little bit of audio problems, but good morning, Mike Levine. How are you this morning?
Good morning, Chuck. It's Thursday already. Happy Thursday.
Thank you. Yes. Happy Thursday to you too. And before we get too started, I wanted to give you a shout out. You're going to be speaking tonight at the Florida Republican Assembly meeting up in Tavares at the Civic Center.
That's correct. At the Tavares Civic Center, which is located at 100 East Caroline Street in downtown Tavares. The public
There we go.
library is there. It's pretty easy. It's right in the heart of the city there. So if anybody out there decide want to come out and talk with like-minded, America First, Make America Great Again Republicans, this would be a great opportunity to do it.
There you go. And now there's a larger room and a smaller room, and we are at the smaller room, which would be it would be a side entrance. So in case anyone's first time looking for us, so
That's correct.
if there's a side entrance.
Yeah, so I think there's some pickleball courts or something like that off to the side of the building there. And if you go to the side of the building where the courts are, then you'll easily find the meeting. And then we'll make sure that that door doesn't lock. I mean, that door automatically locks. So unfortunately, there are times when people think that the door's locked and it is, but we need to have an attendant there to make sure that we can open the door to make sure people get access. But yeah, starts at 6 o'clock downtown Tavares. Doors open at 5:30.
There we go. So this morning, as long as we can continue to do okay with our audio here, we're going to be talking about your 2026 legislative priorities. Are you still hearing me, Mike?
Your voice is very soft, Chuck. It's hard for me to hear you, but I am, I'm able to respond, so not a problem.
Yeah, yeah. So hopefully I'm not yelling in the ears of the people listening, but we are struggling over here this morning. The mission that you have noted at the top of your list here is to deliver a state of Florida that median household income families can afford to live in. Would you like to give us a quick overview of that perspective?
Yeah, okay, great. So, Chuck, my entire life since I graduated from high school and went to college and embarked on my career is this, that there's certain things that people have to have. People obviously air, water, food, right? Which goes into the whole agricultural community, legislatively, politically. And then you get into housing. And of course, I spent, I'm in the real estate business. I deal with housing and commercial real estate too on a regular basis. So that checks that box. So food, housing, of course, you've got to deal with electricity and water. So those are utilities, right? Then you get into transportation, right? So my mind in my entire life, as I look on the secular side of my life, and how I kind of choose what to get involved in and what not to get involved in. And you could have a very interesting conversation about that because people make a lot of money selling yachts and airplanes, just so you know, which are not a requirement for living for most of us. Some of us, yes, but most of us, no. But I'm a basic fundamentals kind of guy. That's the point that I'm trying to make here. Okay. So for me, the government is here to serve the broadest audience of citizens possible. And if you want to define that, you can easily define it by economics, median household income, which means that half of the state, let's talk about this on a state level. When you talk median household income, half of the state lives at or below the median household income, and the other half of the state lives at or above. So median household income for me is a great benchmark for how broad of the population are you serving. And then I just also want to close this little section of our conversation by saying that when you apply the benefits of government to the median household income family, you get an incentive for less than medium to rise, and you make everything cheaper for everyone above. So basically, if you're above median household income, then you just get more for your money, right? You have more disposable income because when you lower the cost of living for median household income families, you lower the cost of living for everyone. The old saying goes, rising tides lifts all ships.
There
So
we
that's kind of
go.
the foundation for everything that I do, Chuck.
There you go. There you go. And we have a few different key points that hopefully we're going to be able to get through this morning. The first of which is when we are concerned about how to deliver this state of Florida that allows the median household income families to at least afford to live here. You start with ethics in government. Um, why don't you tee off on ethics in government? And don't take the whole half hour now, Mike.
The elusive ethics in government conversation, right? So I'm going to tell you right now that if we could restore ethics to government, we solve all the other problems, right? I'll tell you something, Chuck. I had a meeting with the rabbi yesterday, and the point is that God creates problems to be solved. That's why, people wonder, why does God allow bad things to happen in the world? And one perspective on it, I'm not saying this is a conclusive, all-encompassing reason, but God allows, in my view, God allows problems to exist because when we solve the problem, we elevate the human condition. So the problem we have, Chuck, is we have very little ethics in government today. So I'm going to just keep this real short, and I'm going to say this to you. Just like I told you previously in our earlier conversation on this episode, I told you what my values are. If you make life easy for median household income families, you make life better for everyone. And unfortunately, when people go to Tallahassee, all of our legislative delegation and most of our executive branch people, they're there to make life better for themselves and for their special interest big donor constituents, which is antithetical to improving the quality of life for, making life affordable for median household income, Chucks. And that is the point of differentiation there. I'll turn the mic back over to you.
There you go. And as I've said ad nauseum, a Republican form of government is a government that's for the people, not the special interests, not the cronies, but for the people. And if you're not making your legislative decisions for the benefit of the people, you are not governing as a Republican. Simple as that. Well, let's move on to the next topic. education. There are several different points here on the education side of things, but that does help, I would say, raise people's income levels or whatever. Why don't you talk to us about your position on education?
Right. So, of course, let's refer to it as the deep state. Well, the Communist Party, who have declared for decades that America will fall without a single fire shot because it will be taken over from within. And you can see the public school system and the university system, publicly funded, all of it, does not teach the founding values of this country to our kids. And I'm saying to you, I sat down one time, Chuck, with today our supervisor of election, Alan Hayes. Okay. And of course, Alan served 8 years in the Florida House, termed out, and then served 6 years in the Florida Senate and chose not to run, actually stepped down, I believe, from his Senate seat to run for the supervisor of elections office, which he holds that office now. And him and I had lunch together, just me and him one time. And we both agreed that if you read the Bible, you don't have to read anything else. All wisdom is included in the Bible. Yet, we don't teach that to our children. So I would suggest that, in education, instead of putting our kids in prison for 12 years, we ought to just read them, teach them the Bible, and they'll figure it out everything else for themselves. Now, that could be, a little overstatement, right? You might say that we probably ought to teach them a little bit of calculus or physics or whatever you want to make sure that we can make better computer chips in China. But I believe foundationally, all of that follows, okay? When people have the Spirit of God in their soul, they will prosper, Chuck.
Our early education system in America was totally surrounding the Bible, and obviously you can get math and more current history into the situation along with the Bible, but that was the foundational piece of our founding school system. And you have here that, again, we have to demonstrate to Florida families that the state of Florida does put the median household incomes families first, and that can be an education system too. And we need also to teach children and their parents that there is a good life ahead for those who work hard and play by the rules. Is there anything else here in the education list here that
I'd like to talk about those two topics, if you don't mind.
Sure, go ahead.
So years ago, based on a lobbying trip back in the old days, Lake County used to go up and lobby the legislature, and we would, the county would encourage, people to sign up and travel together, and it'd be citizens from Lake County that did the lobbying for the county. But of course, we trashed that because the citizens that went to lobby didn't always agree with what the what the county commissioners and constitutional officers and other stakeholders wanted. So we scrapped it, and we now pay lobbyists to lobby the legislature for us, so that we have that little micro voice is the loud voice being heard in Tallahassee. But let's see here. My point on this subject would be that, so from that lobbying trip, a foundation was created because of my comments over lunch to Leslie Campione, Wendy Breeden, and a gentleman by the name of TJ Fish, who ran the Lake and Sumter Metropolitan Planning Organization. We were sitting around the table having lunch, and they asked me what I would do if I was in charge. You know what I mean? So I said I would teach intermediate and advanced computer skills, technology skills in the libraries. And so we put this foundation together, and then Lori Baker, Carrie Baker's wife, was on the foundation. And one day after one of our meetings, I was talking with Lori as we were disembarking out of the meeting. And I told her, I said, you know, Lori, from my period where I come from, my life history, I'm suggesting to you that at least 50% of the population just wants government to leave them alone. They just don't want to feel it, right? And she agreed with me, okay? Which is a major step, Um, the Baker family obviously is involved in politics in Lake County for generations. And Carrie Baker's wife, Lori, agreed with me, I don't know how many years ago it was, call it 10 years ago, that at least 50% of the population just wants to be left alone. That's my point to you. So the next step becomes, and this is what I'd like to see happen. I would like to see us just do an outreach program to teach people who are not engaged civically that they do, in fact, have an interest in what happens in government. And if they will work hard and play by the rules, then their voice can be heard if they make their case. But of course, that just goes into a much deeper conversation, which we've already had about the importance of biblical teaching, right? And what does a respectable lifestyle look like so that when an individual or a family has concerns about what's going on in government, that the government is actually willing to listen to you? So that's kind of the two-edged sword. Number one, do people
Okay.
believe that they actually have a stake in government and that the resources of government benefits them? That's a question. And the second thing is, if you don't believe that the resources of government benefit you, then my recommendation is join us, prepare yourself, and make your case. Because as you and I agree, I'm going to assume that we agree that God created every single soul. No soul was created better than another. And by working on the instructions from God, we human beings prepare ourselves to take dominion over the earth, which includes our political situation, Chuck.
So our third point here is affordability.
You're moving pretty quickly off of that
Yeah,
there.
well, we're trying to keep us in here. Time keeps moving
I
along
got it.
here.
I got it. Okay.
This is
Yeah, it
number
was a
three.
mouthful. I agree.
There you go. Number 3 of 5, affordability. Prohibit the state of Florida from subsidizing housing purchases. Now, someone might say, how is that helping affordability?
When you subsidize something, demand for the product goes up. We know that we're undersupplied in the housing market in Florida. So when you subsidize housing purchases, you make houses more expensive. And I just want to tell you, Chuck, that when people buy housing in an undersupplied market that's subsidized by the government, every single one of those people that buy a house, and oftentimes the government is giving these people money to buy the house, they're overpaying for the house. So the damage you're doing to the buyer is actually worse than keeping the buyer in a landlord-tenant relationship, Chuck. Does that explain it clearly enough?
It certainly does. There are a few other things here. One of them is one of my bailiwicks here is make electricity affordable by restricting production of Florida's commercial energy producing output by wind and solar technologies to 10% of Florida's electricity requirements. I am so sick of hearing and driving past these solar farms. Um, what say you?
Couldn't agree more. Yeah, I couldn't agree more. Not to mention the fact I think that there's some really breaking technology that's going to put the whole green energy thing to bed, and that is fusion nuclear production. So again, just a brief, today nuclear production is done by fission, splitting atoms. But there's technology on the rise right now that makes energy production possible by nuclear fusion, which are combining atoms, which is much safer. The nuclear plant is a lot smaller, less expensive, and safer. So I foresee the day that we actually have nuclear powered engines in our cars, Chuck. So that's a big deal. I think that's going to come online within the next couple of years. You're going to see the first application of nuclear fusion into the market, and that's going to just render if people, but of course people aren't reasonable, right? I mean, the climate change people, I mean, it's just like, gender identification, right? I mean, it's just the most ridiculous thing you've ever heard in your life. There's no way this actually makes sense, but they cling to the argument anyway. So I wouldn't be surprised if, even though we come up with nuclear fusion, which is a safe, inexpensive way to produce energy, that the climate people continue to beat their windmills and solar farm drum because they're motivated by different things than providing affordable energy to our citizens and also to our economy, Chuck.
No, it has nothing to do with climate. It has everything to do with the controlling people. So let's move along here to your number four point here is public safety. Now, how are we going to help medium income families with public safety?
Chuck, this is really kind of a very interesting subject, and as I was putting together this outline, my first thought was to label this heading law enforcement. Okay. And then I said to myself, boy, it's really interesting because sometimes we have to protect people from law enforcement. I know that's a pretty controversial subject, but it's not if you ask Donald Trump. It's not controversial if you ask J6ers. It's not controversial if you ask moms who got their door kicked down by FBI agents for complaining at a school board meeting. And then now, of course, in Lake County and all over around the state, we're seeing that cities are applying these flock cameras, right? And issuing speeding tickets off of red light cameras effectively, I think is a generic term for it. But the company called Flock manufactures these cameras, and I know they're using them in Mount Dora, they're using them in Astatula, and Clearmont used them a while back, and I think have moved away from them because of the public outrage. So the point is, Chuck, the Fourth Amendment of the Constitution protects Americans from illegal search and seizure. And I believe it goes on a little further to actual surveillance, right? And these cameras are surveillance. So I don't want to, pigeonhole this whole conversation about law enforcement or public safety about cameras, but the cameras are a huge deal, Chuck, particularly as we move more and more into this technological age and artificial intelligence becomes a bigger part of our life. Because I'm saying to you that what we're doing right now, Chuck, our broadcast today will be etched into history forever. There will never be a time in the future that you will not be able to find this if you diligently search for it. So everything I'm saying today can be used against me and will, keeping in mind that our Republican Executive Committee Chairman Taylor Yarkowski has an open investigation against me, accusing me of extorting him, utilizing his position power as a state rep to influence the Florida Department of Law Enforcement to harass me into basically silence me. And so that makes my point because the Florida Department of Law Enforcement knows that I did not extort Taylor Yarkowski, yet they still have an open case. So the point is that government is weaponized. And while, yes, we need law enforcement to protect us from sleeper cells and all other kind of things that are going on in this country, particularly with the Iran war going on, but we also have to have a vigilant voice protecting us from law enforcement, Chuck.
There you go. There you go. I don't know if you want to give a quick shout out, very, very quick. We've talked about nations in action, and they have a good governance guarantee affidavit. Just 30 seconds on that, Mike.
Yeah. Well, my friend Maria Zach, who's a very seasoned and accomplished political influence, activist, very accomplished, very smart, dedicated her whole life to it. And she came up with her organization is called Nations in Action. And she has a program called the Good Governance Guarantee. And what the Good Governance Guarantee does, it basically implements, I would say, law that every government employee signs an affidavit every time they pick up a paycheck that says that they did not see anything unethical or illegal in the department where they're working since the last time they signed one of these affidavits. So the big deal there is audits, affidavits, and transparency. Let me say it again. Audits, affidavits, and transparency. So every government office should be independently audited periodically. Point number one, that's audits. Number two, the affidavits I just explained to you that every government employee should sign an affidavit stating that they did or did not see unethical or illegal activities going on in the government agency in which they work. And transparency means that all public records are published, okay? And that would go like, for example, Chief Financial Officer Jeff Atwater, when he was Florida's CFO, made a commitment to Floridians, and he published the entire, not just the budget, but all the transactions, all government contracts, all of that were published online under CFO Jeff Atwater. So that would be an example of transparency and the level of transparency that we need here in the state of Florida, Chuck.
There we go. And your final point under your 2026 legislative priorities on how to assist Florida to become a median income family advocate is growth management. And you mentioned right up front, restore the 1985 Growth Management Act. What was that? And tell us about it.
Yeah. Right. So, again, isn't it interesting that I'm in the real estate business, and I was in the real estate business, let's see, 1985. Actually, I wasn't. Okay, that was before I got into the real estate business. But as I entered into the real estate business, I was transacting business under the 1985 Growth Management Act. And what happened there was, particularly you get into um, um, let's see, what do they call it? Projects, let's see, DRIs, developments of regional impact. And those developments stretch across county lines. So the impact stretches across county lines. So if you put in a residential subdivision near a county line with 2,000 housing units in it, then the demand for roads, schools, all that, it impacts the county next door. Okay. So basically, there was an organization, a department of government called the Department of Community Affairs, the DCA. And when anybody came to, number one, it established that the cities and counties had to submit planning and zoning maps, plans every 10 years. So it established that. And it also said that if you're amending the maps or plans and the project that you're working on impacts across county lines, and it has to get approved by the Department of Community Affairs. And I'm sitting here looking at where we are right now with the state of Florida just completely blowing out, usurping the authority of cities and counties over land use. And I say to myself, we had this right in 1985 and we dismantled it. So I say we put it back. Okay.
There you go.
Does that cover it for you?
Well, yeah, I guess it does. There are a few things that you list over here. Let's see, we're almost out of time, so let me just go to the bottom here. State oversight and agency review. Reinstate Florida Department of Community Affairs. DCA has authority to reject non-compliant plans. Does that add anything to what your concerns are, Mike?
Well, again, you can start off with concurrency, right, Chuck? I mean, that's the big rage on the street now, is you're putting up these developments, but you don't have the infrastructure to support it. So the number one thing in the 1985 Growth Management Act was concurrency.
Yeah.
How do you know what? It's like the old, baseball movie, right? You build it and they will come. Yeah, you're damn right they'll come. But how are they going to get here? And how are they going to get out? Right? And how are we going to take care of all the demands that humans have on development um, when we aggregate together in high density numbers, right? I mean, there's a lot that goes into being able to service human beings. So concurrency is a huge issue, Chuck, right?
Yeah,
And you
it
go to the
is.
next
And
item, comprehensive planning we covered. Um,
well,
Consistency requirements, that's just making sure that the city and county plans are consistent with the state plan. And the state says, hey, this is what we expect to see over the next year to 10 years, right? So we want your local plans to be concurrent, consistent with state plans. I don't think that's unreasonable, but I do think it's unreasonable for the state to say, you know what, you're just not even in the conversation anymore at all. And we're just going to let this. I have a bad word in my mind right now, but let's substitute the bad word that I have in my mind with the word disaster. We're just going to let this disaster happen by taking away your input on the planning, which will create development disasters. It's happening right now all around us. I mean, Nan Cobb's constituents are complaining about it, right?
there you go.
So the
Well,
problem is happening. So I'm suggesting that by reinstating the 1985 Growth Management Act, you solve all the problems that people are complaining about. And we actually did it in the state of Florida for way more than a decade, right? I think Rick Scott began dismantling the Growth Management Act, Chuck.
okay. Well, we are out of time. We managed to get through your 5 points. And would you mind giving us a short closing statement?
Well, it's interesting, Chuck, um, that when we talk to our children, and I'm a grandfather, so I'm thinking about my grandchildren right now. And for me, I know that if I can teach my grandchildren to live by the instructions of God, then that's the best thing that I can do for my grandchildren. And then you can expand that conversation out to us socially and politically. And that's the answer. So I think this is the direction that God's taking us in his 7,000-year plan. And maybe someday we can talk about that. But I do believe that humanity is destined for peace on earth. And eventually we will wake up and realize that living according to the instructions of God is the formula for prosperity and peace on earth. And for me personally, Chuck, I do what I can do, of course, in my imperfection, and attempt to advance the will of God on the earth in my community as much as I can. And that's the reason that you and I do this broadcast, Chuck.
There we go. Well, thank you, Mike Levine, and thank you all again for tuning into our twice weekly live stream. Please follow us on Facebook at Restoring Our American Republic. Check us out on YouTube at Restoring Our American Republic ROAR. Please like and share the program. And remember, if you're unwilling to govern yourself, you will be governed by tyrants. Until next time, God bless you. God bless President Donald J. Trump, and God bless America.